Hello, welcome to my next series of Angular 4, and today we will learn how to create custom directives. Like in the previous video, we saw what directives are. They add behavior to the element, and today we'll see that how to make our own custom directives. We can even make our own custom directives. So we discussed that there are three types of directives. One is attribute directive, another is structural directive, and third one is component directive. So component directive we have already seen in our first and second session. Then we also saw attribute directive, like previously when we had done some sample files. We have created some sample files. So we have already demonstrated the attribute directive and the structural directive. Okay, so this ng style was an attribute directive, ng switch and ng case, they were all attribute directive. Okay, then ng4 was a structural directive. So attribute directive is in a simple way we say is that it adds cosmetic to the element, while a structural directive, it defines the structure, how the element would be structured depending on some conditions or the data. Okay, like ng4 we saw, like as many number of items in this array players is there, add many number of time to render the li tag. So this is the ng4, ng if, these were all structural directive, and this directive you'll see they are appended by an asterisk, while the attribute directive are simply wrapped with a square bracket generally, and they serve as a property or an attribute. Just like we put an attribute in an element, is the same way we apply it over here. So we already have seen this. Now let's try to create some of our own custom directive, and we'll demonstrate a very simple directive, but after you gather the knowledge of how to create a simple directive, you can even utilize it to even create a more complex custom directive. Okay, so now let's first start with our custom attribute directive. So to create a custom attribute directive, let us create a new file. Though you should create in a separate folder, but let me create it over here only. So inside app. Okay, inside app I can say new folder. Let me make a folder called my custom directive. Say for example custom, or you can make it in the same level as the file. So this is the folder called custom directive. Inside this folder I can create a new file. Say I name it as hover directive. Okay, I'll make that a directive where I can create a custom hover effect. Okay, so this hover directive will be of type attribute directive. Okay, so first let us import directive. These are all part of the Angular core. Okay, then element ref is to refer to the DOM element on which it is attached. Okay, so for the time being, let us import only these two, but we will require some more component dependencies or components, so we'll come to it one by one. So from, as I mentioned, it's a part of Angular core, @Angular core. Okay, so this is the minimum dependency we have to import. Now this is not a component, this is a directive, and component is a special kind of directive. So in a component we use component decorator. So in directive we will use a directive decorator. Okay, decorator, as I mentioned, is a special kind of function which tells how that class or component or how that class would be rendered or created. So this always carries a metadata with it as a parameter. So at the rate directive, and then I will give a metadata. Okay, so first thing we give a name of the directive, so it will be selector. What is the name you want to give? So since this is an attribute, so we know that attributes in CSS is surrounded by square bracket. So here I will write the attribute name, say hover, or I'll say my hover. Or let us give some more better names, say hover directive. Or custom hover. Let's give it a very simple name, custom hover. Whatever name you can give, you are free to do so. Okay, so by this name it will be called. So that's it. Let us keep selector only, because we will be demonstrating a very simple use case. And then immediately after decorator, we have to write export class. This is how a class is declared in Angular, as we have seen when we created components. So I'll say export class and then give it the name. Say I give the name my attribute, any name you can take. Let me give it some user friendly name. So I export this class. Okay, so this is the bare bone structure. Now what I can do is I have to create a constructor. So if you know Java, then you know what is a constructor. Java or any object oriented program, whenever you are instantiating that class or applying that class, that constructor will be called automatically. So every class has a constructor and it's optional whether you write it or you don't write it. It's up to you. So here we will definitely take a constructor, and inside constructor whatever parameter we take, that is being injected into the class. Okay, this is called dependency injection. I'll cover this in more detail when in the later tutorials when we talk more about dependency injection. So constructor, so take some variable private. If you observe, we have taken element ref over here. So this element ref will refer to the DOM element on which this custom attribute is attached. So take any variable name. So I take EL for element, for example. Okay, and this is of type, say colon. In Angular, we can give data type as after colon, just like in Java we give say private string something, say A, private string B. So same way in Angular we can say private EL colon string colon int. So same way I will say colon element ref. So this will be EL will be of type element ref. Okay, so this means EL will contain the element on which it is attached. Okay, say in HTML I come to app.component.html and say I am writing over here I span tag. Okay, and slash span, and here I write this is a span text with custom attribute directive, right? Okay, and inside this span, say I will write that directive, custom directive. Okay, say I give the directive name. What was the name I have taken? Let's see. That is custom hover, whatever is the selector name. So if I put custom hover over here, okay, so anyway, let me go step by step. I just give it as an attribute, forget about the rest. Sorry, so this is an attribute. So custom hover. Okay, so that means if I am attaching this attribute on this element span, so in this class this el will contain the reference to that span element. Okay, so now if I say el dot say native element, if you say in el dot native element, there is a property called native element, then it will refer to your span now. Okay, dot, so el is the actually element reference object, and dot native element will return you the object on which it is attached. Okay, so just a correction I am making in my previous statement. I gave that el is the reference to the span. El is not a direct reference to the span. El is the element reference object, and el dot native element will give you the current element on which it is attached, that is the span element. Okay, so el dot native element dot, now I can use my native JavaScript dot style and whatever you want to use. Say I want to use background color, background color say is equal to, say I give orange for example, or any color code you can write. That's it. So that means if I attach this custom attribute to any element, its background color will be orange. So I have come over here, so I have attached to span, so this its background color should be orange, right? But can I run it? No, there is still an issue. If you come over here, see it will not get applied. Why it will not get applied? I'll tell you the reason. It will not get applied because over here my HTML template doesn't understand where is this custom hover, right? Because custom hover I am not writing anywhere in app component.ts. This app component.html is referenced from, if you remember, this is our main file, component file, right? Here it is not referenced anywhere, right? So where do we need to, whatever component we are using in our template, be it component or directive or anything, filters, pipes, which we'll see later on, all these things needs to be informed to this template. This template needs to be informed that this exists, otherwise it doesn't understand what is custom hover. So that is why it is not applying the background color. Now there is, in Angular there is a concept of module. Angular, the whole application is separated into module. Module we know is a separate modular separation. It's a separation of the code base, or the separation of concerns, you can say. So Angular by default has got one module, and this module we will have a separate session altogether for just modules. Okay, but here let me roughly speak a little bit about modules in terms of this, how to expose this directive. So if you come to app.module.ts, this is the default module. After this you can have even many more module. So this is the one main default module that every Angular application will have. And how do we identify whether that class is a module type or a component type or directive? See, if it is component, you have a component decorator. If it is directive, we have seen we have a directive decorator. And if it is a module, we have an @ng module decorator or ng module decorator, right? So ng module decorator have got many metadata, but for us the important one right now is the with which we are concerned right now is this declarations. So all the components and directives needs to be declared over here. What you are going to use in your application needs to be declared in this module. So comma. So before that I have to wait. Let me import this. Okay. See, if you see, even our app component is declared over here in this module. Okay, app component, if you see. Okay. So let me first import it. So before I declare it, I have to import it. That directive import. What was the name of that directive? Means the class name of the directive. Class name is, whenever you are importing, you have to give the class name and the path, right? So I will say directive from and give the relative path. Always give the relative path, never give the absolute path. That is not a good practice. Slash then it is directive, folder name is directives, right? Custom directives, DIRECT. So custom directives slash hover directive, hover hyphen without the TS extension. Okay, so this is imported inside this module, and now you have to tell this module that this module and all the element of this module can access this directive. So I have to put it in the declaration, and what we put in imports and providers and bootstrap, I'll come to it later. Imports, all the other modules we can put in import just at a higher level, I am mentioning it. And in provider we will have all the injector services like the HTTP service, the AJAX service, and bootstrap will be the main component which is being bootstrapped, that I explained in my session 1. So anyway, we will be covering this in more detail later on, a full session dedicated to this topic only, that is modules. So for now we are good to go with just this part. So what I did in the module, I imported my attribute directive, and then I just put it in the declaration, the name of the component. That's it. Now whatever is inside this module will see this directive. Now this directive will be visible to that. So that means now my HTML can see this directive. So let's come to the code. See, now the color is orange. So you got it. So this is our custom directive. So that means wherever, which and from now on, whatever HTML I take, so even if I take a button and if I say custom, that's it, test slash, and let's run it. I have attached the hover. See, the button is also, background is orange. So I have defined my own custom directive, just like you can do in Angular JS, that is Angular 1.x. Same thing you can do in Angular 2, but with more flexibility. So this is clear? Okay. Now let me give a break tag. Now let us change this dynamically, right? Suppose I want to, when my cursor comes, it will have this color, some color, and when my cursor moves out, it will have a different color. Okay, so let us do one thing. Let us come to the directives, over directive. Just we are modifying this directive further. This is just a simple one. Now apart from this, you can create, let us create a function. Okay, so let us create a function called, say, let us name this function as, say, highlight color. Okay, I'll name this function as highlight color. Okay, so I can write my function like this, or whatever name you can give. I am giving it a very simple name, highlight color. Okay, and in this function let us have some argument. Okay, I'll have an argument, say, okay, and this can be of type string, and even if you don't write type, it will typecast it. So writing type is a good practice, but let us take a very simple approach as of now. And now this EL is already EL is a type of element ref. It is already injected into this constructor. When this injection is being done, I can always refer it as a simple variable. This dot EL dot, this whole thing we can copy. Let us copy it here. Orange. Sorry, instead of orange, I will give a custom color, whatever color. Okay, so this, whenever this function is called with whatever color as a parameter, it will set it to the same color. Okay, so here let us not give any color. I am commenting it out. Okay, so leave the constructor as it is for now. Now if I have to attach an event called mouse, you can even say on click also you can give. So let us do one thing. Let us use an inbuilt host listener through which we can have mouse enter and mouse leave events. All the DOM events that we have, we can get through host listener. Okay. Now what is the difference? We can directly use JavaScript events also. Now the reason is that if you use this Angular host event listener, it will do all the tasks implicitly for you, like detaching the event when it is no longer used. But if you use it yourself, like using the pure JavaScript event, then you have to manually do it all. So this task is done for you if you use host listener. So I would suggest use host listener. Okay. So if once we have imported host listener, then we can very easily write another decorator or annotation, whatever you call it, host listener, and within this you can define what event you want, what kind of listener, for which event you want. So I say mouse enter. Okay, mouse enter, all is small you can write. Okay, this is the alias name, mouse enter, sorry. And then you define the on mouse enter function. You can even leave this as a blank also, but yeah, write it this way. So this will be executed on whenever a mouse enters that element. Okay, whenever a mouse enters that element, this will be executed. So I will simply do what? I'll simply call this function. So to call this function, you have to use, if you have to refer a variable, you have to refer a function, you always have to use the keyword this. Remember it, not directly highlight color, because this is a property variable, not a local variable. So we'll come to that also. Right. So this dot highlight color, say I write green for example. Okay, and same thing I copy paste for mouse leave. Okay, okay, so here I will write let us write it this way, camel case. Okay, sorry, so it will be easier to distinguish. So on mouse enter and mouse leave, okay, write M capital over here, same way. Okay, so host listener, mouse enter and mouse leave we are calling, and this name we can take any function. Okay, this we can give any function name. Okay, so on mouse leave let us make it yellow. Fine. Now let us run it. Okay, just a sec, let's see if we have saved it properly or not. Okay, it's still rendering. Okay, now let us bring the cursor, my mouse, see, it's green, and when I leave it is yellow, green, yellow. Okay, so let me do one thing. Instead of a span, let me make it h1, it will be bigger actually, h1. Okay, so let it get loaded. Okay, oh, h1 we have already set the color to be yellow in our previous session, that is why it is yellow. So let's do one thing, instead of h1 let us take it as h2. I hope we have not written any style for h2. So now this should be fine. Okay, okay, see, so even on button also same thing we have given button. So you see how simple it is to create a custom attribute directive. So this way we can create a custom attribute directive. Okay, now wouldn't it be good if we can set the, even if we can give the developer the control to set the, like here we are hard coding the color, right? If you come to this directive, we are hard coding the color over here, this and this, right? So wouldn't it be good if we can give this control to the user? How we can do that? Now there's another decorator for setting a custom property, right? So like for example, always declare it in the beginning, that is called input. So first, before that, let me come over here. Before that you have to import input. So you can have this input decorator. So in input, whatever you give it, input parenthesis like this you have to give it. Inside parenthesis you can take any alias name. So forget it, let's keep it simple. So input, and let me make it say highlight color, and say this is of type string. I just define it. I have not given any value. Okay, somewhere I've written a function called highlight color. Sorry. So let me make it the name, let me give it a name, hover color. Okay, so right now it is orange, so let us customize only the mouse enter color. Then mouse leave color also you can customize the same way, right? So I'll leave that as an exercise for you. Let me show you just the hover color. Whenever mouse enters, what is the color? Right now we are saying green. Okay, so instead of green now, so I have written green, so I'll just write this dot, because as I mentioned, always you have to mention this before referring to any variable. So this dot hover color, right? Now if I come over here, see, only mouse out is working, mouse enter is no more working. Why? Because now on mouse enter, this highlight color takes the variable hover color. Hover color still doesn't has any value, it is just declared as a string. So I come to this HTML, and in this H2 where I've given custom hover, here you just put square bracket. Remember, whenever you are declaring your own custom attribute or custom property, custom input element, input property, whatever you call it. Okay, maybe this is not the appropriate term I'm using. So whatever you are using, in a simple way, whenever you are taking @input something, so that you should always surround by square bracket, means you are providing that and a value from the HTML template. Okay, so it was hover color, right? So hover color is equal to, even without this also you can take, it's not that you cannot take without this, you can even try without this also. Say hover color, generally you can surround it by this. Now there is one thing very tricky. See, if I give double quotes and say hover color, I want that whenever it is hovering on it, it should be say blue, for example. Now see what happens. Will it take effect? Yeah. Okay, it does take. But let me tell you one more thing. In case if sometimes you find that there is an issue, you can give that double quotes and single quotes within that. Okay, but anyway, this should work fine now. So I have provided my own custom color. Now here same I am using. Here I'll say hover color. For the button I will say color is equal to, say here I give orange. Okay, now see, same directive but with different configuration. See, blue and yellow, orange and yellow. So yellow is hard coded, while orange and blue is like we are customizing it, we have made it more flexible. So this is left as an exercise for you, that you yourself provide value for the background color also, means on mouse out also. So I'll just give you a hint, very simple. Come to this app.component.ts, the directive, hover directive, and declare one more @input just after this line, and say hover out color. Okay, and here you put hover out color, and go to your HTML and give one more attribute like hover color is equal to blue space, then hover out color is equal to whatever color you want to give, and you are done. Fine. Okay. Now there is one very shortcut. Like here, if you come to this template, what you observe is that we are using separate value for this custom hover name and separate name for this custom hovers property. There is a way in which we can reduce it to just one single element, where it can be used both as the attribute also, and it will set the hover color value also. How to do that? And that has got some drawbacks as well. If it is only one property, then it is easy for us to do, but if it is multiple property, then you should not do it. So say for example, I want it in a single, so just a single hover name I want to write, and same way I can want to set value to that only. So say I have named it as custom hover. So this same name you should copy and paste over here, sorry, here input element. If you make this selector name and input property name same, so everywhere you have to make it same. Okay, if you make it same, then what is the name we had to make? Custom hover. Custom hover is my name, selector name is also custom hover, right? So this hover color is no more there. So just you can use directly the custom hover both as an attribute and both as a property. So you can just say custom hover is equal to blue. Okay, and here also you can say custom hover is equal to orange. But remember one thing, just taking double quote in this case will not work, because it is taking this as a variable. So you have to make this as a string. Like you come over here, see that is not working, because as I said that this will take as a variable. So remember this, that you have always have to take a single quote inside a double quote. Same thing for this. Okay, now let's run it. Okay, see this is working now, and if you come to the button, this is working now. Okay, so this is how we make a custom attribute directive. So what are the steps? Quickly summarizing: import these directive, element ref at least, and others you can import if you want to customize further, like you have to host listener if you want to have events also, and input we want to have custom attribute also. Just make a take a directive decorator, and selector give the whatever is the custom directive name you want to give, then export class, declare the directive class, and in constructor you can directly set the value. Or if you want to customize it, then you can take host listener and just customize it this way, right? And don't forget that you have to declare it in the app module also, this attribute, otherwise it won't be visible to your template. Okay, so this was our attribute directive. Now let's come to the next part of the directive, that is the structural directive. Okay, so to save time, I already have this structural directive typed over here. So let me do one thing. This is the structural directive. Let me try to move it inside custom directive only. Okay, so I have got this structured directive. Now structural directive, same way you have to import directive, and then you have to import template ref and view container ref. These three things you have to import. Input you should import if you want your own property, like I have used my own property over here. So otherwise, if you don't require input, you can simply use these three only. Directive is the main one, as we have seen, template ref and view container ref. Now in this case, like in the previous case, if you see, your element ref was the reference to the element object, and its native element will give you the reference to that element to which it is attached. So same way in the structural directive, you can take template ref if you are using a structured directive. So I'll just, though this is you can do lot more with this, but I'll just take a very basic example. So template ref and view container ref will be the reference to the container. Okay, it's container in which it is contained. Now, so I take two variables in the constructor. So same way I have a decorator, then selector name, and since this is an attribute, so still this also you have to name it as an attribute. Say hide this element. So I am trying to make something which is say if you make this, if you attach this and say it is true, like in star ng, if we see, if it is true the element will show, if it is false element will not show. So this is just the opposite of if. I'll say hide this element. If it is true, the element will be hidden. If it is false, the element will not be hidden. Just a very simple basic example I am taking. So I have to use hide this element constructor, sorry, not constructor, a setter function. So setter function we always write with using set. So if you are from Java background, you already know how we write it. And since this is an input parameter, hide this element will be your input parameter as well. So I'm making the element name and this thing same, just like we have done previously. And whatever is the value of this is hidden, depending on that it will say if is hidden is true, then this condition is, if is hidden is false, then this condition is true. Then it will say this dot view container. What is view container? This container ref dot create embedded view, this dot template ref. Then that template will be created. Okay, that object will be shown in fact. Otherwise this dot view container dot clear. Otherwise the object will be removed from the DOM element. So later on I'll try to make one more tutorial if this seems a bit complicated for you. I'll try to come up if possible with more examples of this structural directive and attribute directive if possible. So for now I'm just taking a quick simple example. Okay, so depending on the value of is hidden, it will set it true or false. That's all. Okay, I have kept it as simple as that. So now what I have to do, I have to go to app module first, and as I mentioned, I have to first declare it over here in app module. Always whatever component you are going to use in the template of any part of your application, first thing you have to do is you have to tell the app module that I have got this template or directive or component which I have to use. So coming to app module, so my structural directive, and this would be my structural directive. So if you are using this Visual Studio Code, you will get this auto suggest, so it makes life easy. So in my attribute directive, I'll say after my attributes directive I'll put my structure directive. That's all. Now I come to my HTML component and I will apply it over here. Okay, say this is, I take it as h3. Okay, this is our text for h3 having custom structure directive. Okay, and here let us what is the name of our structure directive? Hide this element. Now see, this is a structure directive. So how do we put a structure directive? If you remember, we use a star. Okay, we use a star. So here if to write is with star, asterisk or star, whatever you call it. Hide this element is equal to, say based on some condition I am putting. Okay, so I'll put is hidden. Okay, say a variable I'm taking is hidden. So this variable I have to declare in my component, main component. So here, sorry, this is module, main component, where is it? Okay, let me open from here. Okay, so here I will declare public is hidden is equal to, say, true. First I will make it false. Okay, if I am making it false, it will just be opposite. It should show up. These are text for h3 having customer structure directive, custom structure directive, and if I take this as true, that is hidden. Okay, so it is hidden for that. For true it is just the opposite of ngif. In ngif, if it is true it shows, if it is false it doesn't show. So I've just purposely made it just the opposite. Okay, so this is how we declare custom directive. So anyway, I have just taken very simple examples. There are lots more to this. We can really create very useful directives in a real-time application. So this was just a basic bare bone example. So you can experiment on it, explore further, and if you have any queries, please do put it in the comments below my video, and I'll definitely try to resolve that as soon as I get time. And I would suggest you that you try to experiment more with these directives. Okay, so I hope you really enjoyed this video and it was fruitful for you, and any suggestions are most welcome. Please do feel free to provide your suggestion in the comment box, and if you like the video, then please do press like and share it with your friends, and I'll come up with more videos of this series. So thanks very much for taking your time and watching this video, and have a great day. Bye bye.